Hi love bugs, it's Jen and welcome to today's video. I'm going to show you how I installed 2 rows of wefts. So these are sew-in wefts and I am totally self-taught with the sew-in wefts. I've been doing extensions for probably like 15, 16 years and I got certified in hair locks, Keratip, a bunch of the old school ones, but I had never learned how to do wefts until I was injured in a horseback riding accident in May. A lot of you guys know who follow me. And while I was home rehabbing with a broken pelvis and broken lower back, really a fun time, I decided, am I gonna sit here and be really bored and depressed, or am I gonna learn something new? And so I bought a doll head and I watched a ton of videos on hand-tied wefts, machine-tied wefts, and the sew-in beaded technique. I've practiced the non-sew-in beaded technique. I've done both techniques on my hair, and I came to the conclusion that I'm really in love with this one technique that uses the beads and the thread to build basically a foundation to where then the weft can be sewn into the thread. It really was attractive to me for minimal breakage of the hair and also durability. So I did kind of a test run on the back of my hair and I did one little row. Since then, I've done it on a couple of different clients who are absolutely in love with this technique. I'm in love with it too. So if you are in SoCal and you want wefts, let me know. I'll put my website down in the description box below on how to contact me for an appointment. But all of these different techniques that I learned how to do over the years, I end up always doing on myself. I like to do things on myself, get really good at my own hair before I put it on someone else. That way I know how it feels. I end up researching different hair companies, different beads, and so I'll get into all of that, but I really wanted long hair, so I dyed these myself. It turned out so good, you guys. I am so excited. So let's get into all of it. I'm going to show you all of the footage too. Some of it, my camera loses focus here and there. Please bear with me. It's so hard to film it on your own, but I think I got enough to really be educational and helpful for you guys if you're researching this type of technique and you want a hairstylist to do it, or you're trying to do it on your own, or whatever it is. I hope you learned something. I learned a lot watching others, and I've learned a lot doing it on myself, and I just like to pay that forward. So without further hesitation, let me get into everything that happened with putting in my own wefts.
All right, so what I did to prep the hair is I took the old extensions out, and what I had done with the old extensions, like I said before, is I had done a panel in the back that did this beaded thread technique, but I had done non-sew-in, and I had that in for a couple of months. But I took all of that out because I really narrowed down that I loved this beaded thread technique, and I've already done it on a couple customers, and so I felt really confident to get this in my hair. So I took the old ones out and I did a keratin treatment on my hair. The day I'm showing you right here, it has been washed, light conditioner on the ends, no product in it whatsoever, and it is completely dried. Then what I want to do is I want to take the top section that I know no extensions are going to even go near, and I want to get this completely out of my way. So I put it up in a ponytail just to have some control over the top of my hair. Now it's so funny, in looking in this footage, the back of my hair definitely has some demi-permanent color on it. It's pretty close to my natural, but what happened with my last set of extensions is they started to really fade out, like I didn't dye them dark enough. And so when I toned it with a demi-permanent in the back, it colored a little bit of my own hair in the back. I don't really care, I just want to point it out that you can kind of tell in the back where, you know, some demi-permanent color took, and it's almost this like reddish, dark blonde. So I just want to point that out. So I want to go ahead and create a horseshoe style parting. I'm doing 2 wefts. The lower weft has 4 different panels of hair in it. Each panel I dyed a different color to try to match kind of the color I've got going on. The upper weft has 3 panels, and each one of those were dyed separately as well. But I'll show you that in a second. Right here, I'm going in with a horseshoe style parting. I want to try to get the parting as clean as possible. When I'm doing this on someone else, it's a whole lot easier to keep the sections clean from crosshairs than doing it on my own. It was very, very challenging. It turned out fine in the end, but trying to keep the section as clean as possible is just really imperative to not getting a ton of crosshairs in there. And I'm checking in the front to make sure the points in the front are, and I pull this up and clip it back. And then I'm going to use the little kind of Velcro things to really push that top section of hair away and try to keep it as clean as possible. I'm pretty happy with the sectioning. Yeah, just a nice horseshoe. And each bead is going to start a little bit in front of the ear. I already kind of pre-measured this. Okay, here's the lower weft. Each panel, so there's 4 panels, and I used all Kenra of the 10-minute color, and I will put the formulas of each panel in the description box below. So one is like a brown, the other I did almost like a greeny, kind of like dark ash green based blonde, and then I did a very silver, like blue purple based undertone. Yeah, so this one has 2 of the brown panels, 1 of kind of that green ashy dark blonde, and then it has 1 of the very silvery toned panel. So there's 4 panels in this, so it's a pretty thick amount of hair. It's a good amount of hair, and this is going to be the lower weft. The upper weft, I did 1 of the silvers, 1 of the greeny type of dark blondes, and then 1 of the browns. So it's got 3 panels on it instead of 4, and that's going to be the upper weft. So I just wanted to show you. And I spent a lot of time in the salon, you know, dyeing these the correct color because I want these to last for a good year. I want this hair to really last. I also don't want to have to color it while it's installed in my hair because I already had to do that and I don't want to be coloring my hair. And now I've done my permanent hair color on the back of my hair. So lesson learned. And here I'm just measuring out. I know approximately where the front beads are going to go. They're going to go just like right in front of my ear, but I just wanted to double and triple check. It's that old adage of measure twice, cut once. And these are the J-Tide wefts from JZBeautyLC. And I ordered 3 different colors. And like I said, I dyed them. Yeah, I actually like the J-Tide wefts. They're very, very comfortable and the hair is quite nice. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever, but I will link the JZBeautyLC website in the description box below. Now, I'm starting in the front here, and I am taking a bead. I'm using the lighter color beads because I really want to see the beads while I'm doing this install. I think in the future I might use like the dark brown bead, just the first one on each side, because when I get to the very end, you can see the lighter color beads still kind of popping through, but that's something I can tinker with in the future. But for right now, I am putting a bead on, and these beads are actually from Hotheads. I really love the Hotheads beads. So these are Hothead beads, and the thread I'm using for the foundation is the Hotheads nylon thread, which I'm really, really happy with this thread. I'm gonna order more colors of it, but I like it because it's got a nice feel to it. It doesn't get super tangly, the thread itself. And then the bead, they're a little bit bigger. They're a little bit bigger of a bead on the inside diameter, so just super easy to put kind of a thicker piece in. And so that's why I went with the Hotheads beads. I've used the beads from JZBeautyLC, they're nice. And I've used the beads from Donna Bella Hair, and those are nice too, but they're a little bit smaller. These are a little bit bigger. So I go ahead and loop through and put the hair through the bead. And I push the bead up. And then I'm gonna take that nylon thread from Hotheads, and I'm gonna take the needle through the bead, through the bottom of the bead, and pull it through, and I'm gonna leave a little bit of a tail out. That tail is gonna end up tying the weft to this foundational thread at the very beginning. So I leave that portion of the thread out because I am going to use that to eventually tie the actual weft together to that. So very important you leave enough out so you'll be able to tie it later on. And I go ahead and I thread this nylon thread through the bead twice. I really like this. It just makes it feel super secure. And then once I get the thread through the bead 2 times, I get the hair nice and taut, and then I lay the tool flat against my head so that it's not poking out, and I go ahead and crimp the bead down. Then I take the thread and the needle and go up through the hair so that when I do my next section, the thread is laying at the top of the row. So again, just trying to take nice clean sections. I go ahead and loop the bead through my hair, and before closing it, I'm gonna thread the nylon thread down 1 time into the bead, and then I'm gonna make sure it's kind of got some tension on there. Thread it again and double thread each bead each time. I do this each and every time. And I make sure there's just a nice amount of tension in that thread between the beads. Just making sure there's no crosshairs. Laying the bead flat, laying the crimpers flat against my head before crimping the bead closed. And then I thread it back up through the hair. So again, starting that next section, the thread is in a higher point. So I continue this the whole time. Get a nice clean section of hair, loop a bead through, take the thread through the bead 2 times, close the bead flat to the head, and then thread the nylon thread up through the hair so that it starts again up at that high point. And this just creates such a nice foundation. Now this section right here, looking back at the footage, is like, I shouldn't have pulled it so tight. I started kind of over directing. I realize it on my next bead, but right here I would say that I kind of pulled that a little bit too tight. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling it. It's like, oh, that's a little bit too tight. Yeah, I can tell. And I think I had a little crosshair there, so I'm pulling the crosshair out. I'm like, hey, so if you do get any little crosshairs, there's a lot of them, open the bead back up and redo it. But this, it was just like 1 or 2, so I kind of pulled them out. So I probably broke a hair. It's okay. And I'm sorry my arm keeps getting in the way. Like I said, it is so hard to film this by yourself, you guys. I tried my best, but also be able to see what I'm doing. And I'm looking in a mirror and looking behind me, and I'm really just gauging it that way. So I switched angles. I think I could get a better sectioning, a better view from this side. Same thing. Putting the bead in, threading it through 2 times, pressing flat the crimpers against my head, closing the bead down, and then taking the thread up through the hair to do the next section. And honestly, doing this way is so comfortable. Back in the day when I was doing hair locks, my hair would hurt for like a week. This, I'm a little bit tender for one night only, and then it really loosens up. It just is such a nice technique. I'm kind of obsessed with this technique. I loved learning the other techniques, the non-sew-in and doing the beaded wefts with just using the beads and your hair. Like I thought that was pretty cool too, but this is just my favorite. So here's the foundation. It just lays nice and flat against the hair. It's so comfortable. So right here, I'm ending the first weft. On the footage on the other side, it was so blurry, but I do get some really good stitching footage on the second weft. So don't worry, I will show you a close-up of that, but this is really good right here. So this is how I end it. So as I take the stitches and I keep pulling the weft nice and taut, I was using clips throughout. Have to remove the clip, keep putting it back in, making sure that weft stays nice and tight. But kind of toward the end, I remove the clip so I can really see what I'm doing. I want to make sure that I'm getting the needle and the cotton thread underneath the nylon thread, which is why I use the lighter thread, is because I really wanted to see what I was doing. But making sure that I'm threading the cotton thread that I'm using to stitch the weft through the thread of the foundation between the beads. This is going to give so much support to the weft. It's going to give it strength and durability and longevity with minimal damage to the hair, because most of the tension is then on the thread. And whether you use a cotton thread or a nylon thread, it's kind of your personal preference. I like the nylon thread. It just has like a nice amount of give to it, but feels really super strong. I just want to make sure that most of the tension of this huge amount of hair, it's 4 panels of hair, that weight is mostly on that thread that's between the beads. So as I take it and I really stitch that and get it toward this end bead, I'm going to have to then start threading it through the hair at that end bead, and I go ahead and give it a nice couple of good stitches, nice and tight, and then I tie the end of the thread to the end of the nylon thread that I used for the foundation. And that is a great, tight, secure way to do it. I go ahead and comb through all the little crosshairs. I did get quite a few crosshairs just because it's really hard to see it on yourself, but it combs easily out and it becomes just a nice section. So this is what it looks like just with the first weft in with the 4 panels, and I go ahead and make another horseshoe style parting for the second. And what I do is I make sure there's 2 fingers between the first weft and the second weft, and I make sure there's 2 fingers between all my hairline, meaning there's 2 fingers from the front so I can pull it back in a ponytail, and there's 2 fingers at the very nape of the neck so I can pull it in a high ponytail and really hide the panels. So on this second weft, the hardest thing is to get this thing started. Holding the clips, having the clips slip and fall constantly. It was like, oh my goodness, I was losing my patience. But the main thing, it's kind of like how you end it. So how I start is I take the thread and I go through that first bead and the hair, and I pull the thread all the way through except for a good couple inches so I can tie that thread to the foundational thread where the beads are laying. So I tie those two threads together and I knot it about 3 to 4 times. Now it's got a good starting point and I can start sewing on the weft. What I try really hard to do, not as successful on myself as someone else, but I really try to get the stitch through the thread only and all 4 panels of the weft. Get a nice stitch, keep it nice and tight the whole time. And I try to avoid the beads as best as I can on the interior so that this weight is mostly on that interior thread. So I go ahead and stitch through the thread, make sure I have all 4 panels in my stitch, and then pull it nice and tight, and I just continue this throughout the whole stitching of each weft. So I'm getting it to that end bead, and even though while I was threading the rest of it, it was really through the string, when you get to the end, it has to go through the beaded area to really get that secure, tight corner. And I just kind of go back and give a little extra sewing kind of toward the back, and then I bring it back forward, and then I'm going to tie this string to the thread that's attached to the beads. So this thread I'm using right here is actually from JJBEAUTYLLC, and this is a cotton thread, and it's the thick one. There's one that's for thin, and then there's a thick thread, and this is the thicker thread. So I'm just giving it a couple extra stitches as I end this side. But this is really good. So you want to get nice and tight in that corner, and I'm just giving it a bunch of knots, and then I'm taking the nylon thread from the foundation of the beads and tying it here to the cotton thread that I used to sew the weft to the beads. You don't have to use nylon thread and cotton thread. You can use both nylon. You could use both cotton. It's whatever you prefer. I like doing different threads. They seem to knot together really well and not want to unravel. Now you can see I have quite a bit of crosshairs from the top of this. It's just so hard to keep that clean section. Now the nylon thread right there, I do end up cutting a little bit more, but I leave them kind of long. So what I'm going through here is just combing through, making sure that any little crosshairs I'm combing through, and I am able to completely comb through and get any little crosshairs up at the top. So it just feels nice and secure, and getting rid of any crosshairs. Yeah, it actually feels really good. Doing it on yourself is so challenging. Like when I do this to a customer, it is like the cleanest sections, and I can get it done twice as fast. This took me about 2 hours to do each weft. You have to be kind of a contortionist, I'm not gonna lie. So it took me about 2 hours to do the first weft, and it took me about another 2 hours to do the second. So when I'm doing this on a customer, I could do both of these in half the amount of time. It would take me like 2 hours instead of 4. And I know because I've done some customers and it did not take me this long to do their hair. When you're doing your own hair, it's almost like you need like 4 arms. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so challenging. So this is directly when I'm done. All I did was take the top out and just kind of blow dry the top piece. It has not been cut. It has not been washed together, but I am taking a break. So I wash it the next day. So this is next day. I cut it. I cut into it, I chipped into it, and I used a razor just to give it a little bit of light layering. I really didn't take any length off. I want to keep all of the length. But this is it. Just blow dry it all together. It's already looking so much more natural once it's washed together and then just lightly layered. And then I take a curling iron to it and it looks fantastic. So good. This feels so amazing. It feels really tight and secure, but not painful. And it's just really comfortable. It's not itchy. It's not irritating. And this hair really makes a difference. The JZ Styles, the J-Tide WEFTs are really super comfortable. I will give them that. I like these, and I also like the ones from Hotheads. I like those. Those are machine wefts, and they're a little thicker, but those are really nice as well. But anyway, I would totally repurchase these JZ Style J-Tide wefts. They're pretty awesome, and you can put up to 8 panels together. And just to recap, I did 4 panels on the underneath, and then I did 3 panels on the second weft. So super duper happy. There's definitely things I can improve on over time, but considering that I did this to myself, and I'm already getting faster doing it to myself, because this is technically like the 3rd time I've done my own extensions. I did them, and then I maintenanced them, and then I took them out, and then I did these. So between that and doing a couple of my customers, I'm really getting speedy at this and really getting confident at my technique. And I think it looks amazing. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I really do. It's just fun. It's just totally fun. So thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for watching. Comment down below your thoughts. This is not easy to do on yourself. That's why I show you, some of the stuff that's like, oh man, this is like a hot mess and the string gets caught and different things. And it's kind of like you're a contortionist. So if you can afford to have someone do it for you, someone that you trust, I do recommend that. It's just really, really challenging to do it on your own. If you really know what you're doing, you could totally rock it, master it. If you're daring, go for it. I totally am with you. But if you are in the SoCal area and you want someone who's reputable and someone you trust to put in your wefts, let me know and we can book an appointment for you. And also just know, what I do on someone else is 10 times better than what I do on myself. Like when I've done this on my own customers, the sections are so clean. There's like minimal crosshairs. On my own, it's like, oh yeah, there was like some serious crosshairs going on. Not terrible, but more than what would happen if I was doing this on somebody else, if that makes any sense at all. But I love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for hanging out with me. I love you to the moon and back, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Midnight.